This boy is truly unlucky. After being single for many years, he just wanted a simple romance. Unexpectedly, he encountered a notorious fallen angel. To make matters worse, after the fallen angel played with his feelings, she even attempted to kill him. The story started a few days ago. The man named Issei had just enrolled at an all-girls high school with two close friends. Their favorite pastime was peeping, but accidents happen. Their actions were soon discovered. Seeing this, one friend immediately left Issei to draw away attention. Afterwards, Issei complained that his friend was disloyal. At that time, Issei saw a red-haired woman in the old school building and was instantly captivated by her. This red-haired woman, Rias, was a well-known figure at the school. Since then, Issei lamented the unpredictability of life, still unable to shed his label as a single man. Shortly after, a beautiful junior approached Issei, unexpectedly wishing to date him. This immediately made him fall in love. However, this move caused a rift between him and his two friends, breaking their promise to remain single together. Soon on the weekend, Issei went on a date with the junior, Rainare. While waiting for Rainar, a woman handing out flyers gave Issei a strange poster, claiming it could fulfill any wish. Issei, uninterested, just put it in his pocket and continued on his date. They spent a wonderful day together, but at a park, Rainar said she had a surprise for Issei. Then suddenly stabbed him in the abdomen. Issei never expected to die over such a bizarre incident. As death neared, he didn't feel frightened. He just regretted never having touched breasts. He thought of Rias, and at that moment, the strange poster in his pocket suddenly revealed a summoning circle, summoning Rias herself. Seeing Issei about to die, and knowing his fate was death, Rias decided to make a pact with him instead. She then spread her demonic wings. When Issei woke up again, he was at home and thought it was all a dream. From that day, however, he noticed changes in his body. His vision was exceptionally clear at night, and he constantly felt a surge of power. Driven by curiosity, Issei returned to the park but was immediately targeted by another male fallen angel who stabbed him in the chest with a spear. Speechless, Issei wondered why he kept getting stabbed. Just as the fallen angel was about to kill him, a burst of red lightning struck, and Rias appeared again. Recognizing her red hair, the fallen angel realized Rias's identity, knew he was no match, and quickly fled. Rias assured Issei that she would not let him die. When Issei came to, he was back at home, thinking it was another nightmare, only to find Rias in his bed the next second. The power of the Red Dragon Emperor, one of the two heavenly dragons, resides in Issei, and comes with a bug skill that continuously enhances his strength. However, currently, he is just a loser, unable to defeat even a minor fallen angel or summon his own sacred gear. After Rias turned Issei into her demon servant, she made him her bodyguard, which caused dissatisfaction among her other admirers who were determined to beat him up. Before they could act, Issei's two close friends knocked him to the ground with a punch. In the afternoon, under Rias's guidance, Issei visited the Occult Research Club, where all members are Rias's servants. The club serves merely as a front for their base. Rias then explained everything to Issei. The one who attempted to assassinate him was a fallen angel, a divine angel corrupted by evil emotions and cast into the underworld. They manipulate humans to exterminate demons. Besides fallen angels, there are also angels acting on divine orders to eradicate demons, creating a three-way standoff. Rainare, the fallen angel, targeted Issei because of the dragon power within him, which posed a threat to them. Some sacred gears are so powerful they threaten the existence of demons and fallen angels. Rias instructed Issei to focus his will on his arm to summon the sacred gear residing within him. However, Issei's thoughts were filled with lewd fantasies about Rias, and ultimately, he achieved nothing. At night, Club President Rias assigned Issei his first task as a demon, distributing demon flyers. Normally, this task is delegated to familiars, but due to Issei's current weak abilities, he had to start from scratch. Rias encouraged Issei to work hard, explaining that as his power increased, he could rise to a higher-ranked demon and have his own servants. This thought sparked a wicked idea in Issei. However, his excitement was short-lived. Another fallen angel found Issei and, seeing that he was still alive, hurled a spear of light at him. Facing this threat to his life, Issei immediately concentrated all his power into his arm. A red gauntlet appeared on his hand, the sacred gear given by the Red Dragon Emperor within him. The light emitted by the sacred gear frightened the fallen angel away. Once activated, the sacred gear could be controlled at will, either to be engaged or disengaged. The next morning, on his way to school, Issei met a directionally challenged saint named Asia. Attracted by her appearance, Issei immediately offered to guide her to gain her favor. Asia was headed to a nearby church. However, as they approached the church, Issei, being a demon, felt discomfort, indicating that demons indeed cannot be near holy places. Upon learning this, Rias warned Issei never to go to a church, as merely stepping foot there could escalate into a conflict between gods and demons. Being near church personnel was akin to courting death, especially with exorcists who could wield sacred gears and whose exorcisms could completely obliterate demons, leaving no chance for resurrection or reincarnation. Heeding Rias's advice, Issei decided to avoid any further contact with Asia. However, fate had other plans. That night, while completing a task at a client's home, Issei entered to find the house splattered with blood and the client dead on the floor. At that moment, he noticed an exorcist sitting on the sofa, who greeted him cordially but was actually a deranged executioner. The exorcist stated that those who relied on demons were no longer human and had killed the client with 2 slashes. Now, he targeted Issei, charging at him and shooting him in the shin. Issei was quickly overpowered. Unexpectedly, Asia also arrived, and Issei was shocked to see that the kind-hearted Asia was the assistant of this twisted exorcist. Asia quickly shielded Issei, who had shown her kindness, from being executed. Seeing this, the exorcist became impatient. He pressed Asia against the wall, preparing to discipline her. Issei, furious at the sight, responded with his sacred gear. He struck the exorcist with a powerful punch, knocking him to the ground. However, this did not defeat the perverse exorcist. At a critical moment, a summoning circle appeared, and Rias's followers arrived. Rias's purpose was not to fight with the church. She only came to retrieve Issei. They then quickly escaped the area through Akeno's spatial jump. He is the Red Dragon Emperor, capable of destroying the heavens and earth, and possesses the power to slay gods. However, he is now ridiculed by his ex-girlfriend as a common loser. This is because Issei has only recently awakened to this power and is still unfamiliar with its origin. Issei feels guilty for not saving Asia from the exorcist's hands, blaming his own weakness. He wants to become stronger, so he goes to the park to exercise his body. Unexpectedly, he couldn't even do a single pull-up. At that moment, Asia also arrives at the park. Issei immediately takes her to a hamburger shop to apologize. For Issei, Asia has already become a friend, so he decides to spend a day touring the city with her. It turns out to be the most fun Asia has ever had. Issei was injured by an exorcist's holy water weapon in last night's battle, and the wound has not healed. Asia then uses the power of her relic to heal him, which makes Issei curious about her abilities. Asia shares her past with him. Asia was abandoned at a small church doorstep in Europe shortly after her birth and survived because she was found. At 8 years old, when a wounded puppy wandered into the church, Asia prayed hard for it, and a miracle occurred. She was soon taken to a major church that healed injured believers worldwide. Asia was happy her powers could help others. However, one day, Asia treated a wounded man who turned out to be a demon. Despite her kindness, she was condemned as a witch, and a heretic, ultimately forcing her to seek refuge with fallen angels. Asia believes this is a trial from God. She thinks that overcoming this ordeal will make her dreams come true. Asia's dream is simple: to make many friends. Seeing Asia like this, Issei declares himself to be her first friend. However, peaceful moments are always brief. Issei's ex-girlfriend Raynar confronts them the next second. The fallen angel Raynar immediately impales Issei with a spear, mocking him as useless and his sacred gear as a common dragon hand. Seeing this, Asia quickly tends to Issei's wounds. Raynar's goal is to take Asia's healing powers for herself. She then launches another spear, blasting Issei away. Unable to bear seeing Issei die for her, Asia is ultimately taken away by Raynar. Senior Rias tells Issei that artifacts act on the strength of the host's thoughts. The stronger the thoughts, the more powerful the artifact becomes. Rias encourages Issei to rescue Asia and assigns her followers, Yuto and Koneko, to assist him. The trio immediately heads to the fallen angel's church. Koneko kicks down the church's main door, and they are confronted by a perverse exorcist. The arrogant exorcist decides to stop them alone. Clearly, he underestimates their strength. Yuto quickly reveals his artifact, the Sword of Darkness, which can absorb light. Meanwhile, Issei takes the opportunity to knock down the exorcist with a punch. Outnumbered, the exorcist throws a flash grenade and escapes. When Issei and the others reach the underground altar, they find Asia bound to a cross. Raynar forcibly extracts the artifact from Asia. Amid Asia's agonizing screams, the artifact is swiftly removed, and she shows signs of impending death. Watching a decisive protagonist in action is thrilling. When the fallen angel harmed his beloved, Issei immediately knocked her out with a fierce punch, terrifying her and mercilessly killing her so she couldn't resurrect. Originally, the fallen angel Raynar had schemed to steal the healing sacred gear from Asia, hoping to increase her power. Yuto and Koneko cleared the way for Issei, fighting the exorcists ahead. By the time Issei rescued Asia, it was almost too late, and she was close to death. Before leaving, Raynar mocked Issei as worthless, calling herself the true demon with a ruthless heart. Issei quickly took Asia from the underground, but soon after, she stopped breathing. Issei, in tears, cried out to the gods, only to be mocked again by Raynar. Meanwhile, Rias and Akeno hunted down the remaining fallen angels, quickly overwhelming them with their strength. On the other side, Issei felt helpless and furious over Asia's tragic death. Sacred gears are too holy for humans. Any mysterious power is feared and rejected. Raynar taunted Issei, saying he couldn't protect anyone, not then and not now. Issei summoned his sacred gear to attack Raynar, only to be met by her light spears, which pierced his legs. The power of a fallen angel continued to corrupt the demon's body through the wounds. Despite the pain, Issei struggled to stand, surprising even Raynar that he could still rise. Issei was in so much pain that he was nearly unconscious, but Raynar's actions filled him with immense anger, making him numb to the pain. His sacred gear responded to his plea and evolved, startling Raynar into panic. She fired her light spears at Issei again, but he easily blocked them with his dragon hand, causing her to panic even more. She tried to escape, but Issei struck her down the next second. At that moment, Yuto supported the exhausted Issei, while Rias, who had already dealt with the other fallen angels, arrived on the scene. She had been observing Issei's resolve and had not intervened until now. Koneko then dragged the defeated Raynar back in front of them. Raynar was terrified at the sight of Rias, known as the crimson-haired Ruin Princess. Rias had been aware of the fallen angels' schemes from the start, but had not acted as they hadn't directly affected her interests. However, now that Raynar had harmed one of her demons, Rias was ready to settle both old and new scores. Watching Issei's evolved arm armor, Rias explained to Reynare that his sacred gear was not just any ordinary one. It was said to double the wearer's power every 10 seconds, potentially surpassing demons and gods in the future. It is one of the 13 Longinus, the Red Dragon Emperor's arm. No matter how powerful, increasing strength takes time and is not omnipotent. Reynar's defeat was due to her underestimating her opponent. Just as Rias was about to finish off Reynar, Reynar surprisingly reverted to her human form and begged Issei for forgiveness. However, Issei did not hesitate and let Rias execute her with full force. Watching the feathers floating in the air, all memories of Reynar faded away. Issei returned the sacred gear to Asia, but she could not wake up again. Ultimately, Rias decided to take Asia as one of her own followers, turning her into a demon. Asia's healing powers could be of great assistance to Rias. Under Rias's contract, Asia was revived as a demon. Afterwards, following Asia's wishes, Rias arranged for her to stay at Issei's home. Issei's parents were happy, but knowing their son's lecherous nature, they were worried he might do something inappropriate with Asia at home. It took Rias's reassurance to finally convince Issei's parents to agree. After Rias made Asia her follower, she arranged for Asia to stay at Issei's home. To enhance Issei's strength, Rias scheduled morning workouts for him, considering that Issei was currently perceived as a loser without any masculine vigor. In the demon world, strength is paramount. For Issei's Red Dragon Emperor's arm, stronger physical fitness makes it more effective. However, Issei had no interest in training. His mind was preoccupied with the feel of Rias's behind. Subsequently, under Rias's arrangement, Asia started attending school and was even placed in the same class as Issei. Upon learning that Asia was living at Issei's home, he instantly became the target of envy from his classmates. At night, Issei went out on demon tasks again, but often encountered odd clients. This time, he met a perverted man who wanted to be transformed into a magical girl. After finally escaping this weirdo, another task followed quickly, this time with Rias accompanying him. Upon reaching the location, they only saw a suit of samurai armor. The next moment, a clear female voice came from the armor. It turned out the girl was an international student fascinated with Japanese culture and wore the armor at home because it made her feel safer. Her request for summoning a demon was merely to have Issei accompany her to retrieve her notebook from the school building because she was afraid of the dark at night, although her attire was arguably more frightening. After successfully completing the task, the girl made another request for Issei's help. She had developed feelings for a boy but was too shy to express her love. Issei suggested that if she was too nervous to meet him in person, she could express her feelings through a letter. After writing the letter, they tied it to an arrow and shot it towards the boy. They then camped out in the park to wait for his arrival. Soon, a boy with an arrow stuck in his head approached. Surprisingly, he was also quite unusual. And just like that, the boy and girl who liked armor fell in love. It was utterly absurd. Because the task was completed so thoroughly, Rias decided to reward Issei, and the reward was exactly what Issei had been longing for: Rias's breasts. Rias indicated that for the next 5 seconds, her breasts would belong only to Issei. However, Issei hesitated and did not take full advantage of the moment. Still, Rias compensated by giving him a hug. As is well known, the Red Dragon Emperor is a very powerful dragon. Although it currently resides within Issei, it has been unable to engage in soulful communication with him due to Issei's weak strength. The Red Dragon Emperor has long wanted to speak with Issei, but his voice could not reach him because of Issei's insufficient power. However, one night while Issei was asleep, the Red Dragon Emperor finally found an opportunity to appear in Issei's dream. Every demon has their own familiar, and tonight happens to be a full moon. So, Rias took Asia and Issei to the familiar forest to hunt for one. As soon as they arrived, a strange acting man greeted them. He was an expert in capturing familiars and offered to help them find the ones they wanted. Issei, of course, wanted a female familiar, so the man immediately took him to the home of the water sprite, Undine. Just from the name, Issei imagined her to be a beautiful and elegant sprite. However, contrary to his expectations, the water sprite turned out to be a brawny fighter who came there to bathe, prompting Issei to criticize the man's taste. Later, deep in the forest, they spotted a blue dragon, a rare fairy dragon youngling capable of using blue lightning. It was a rare species that needed to be captured soon, as it would be uncatchable once grown. Issei, possessing the power of the red dragon, thought the compatibility would be good. However, the blue dragon completely ignored Issei. At that moment, a bunch of slimes fell from the sky. These slimes were not only indecent, but also had the ability to corrode clothes. Hearing this, Issei immediately planned to make this slime his familiar, true to his lecherous nature. This disgusted the blue dragon, who then struck Issei on the head with lightning and gently perched on Asia's shoulder. The blue dragon only attacks those it sees as enemies and, being a male, dislikes other males. Fairy dragons open their hearts only to those with pure spirits and generally do not approach demons, likely because Asia was formerly a nun. After sending Issei and the others off, Rias was alone, deep in thought at the window. Suddenly, a strange magic circle appeared behind her. Meanwhile, Issei had returned home and was about to go to sleep when a red magic circle appeared before him. Rias then appeared in Issei's room, pinned him to the ground without a word, and asked him to take her virginity. Before Issei could react, Rias had already removed her clothes. She explained that she had thought it through, and this was the only way. She tried to proceed, but Issei, usually lecherous, now hesitated. At the same moment, another magic circle appeared, followed by a woman in a maid outfit. She was Graphia, a servant of Rias's brother. Graphia told Rias, who was to be the next head of the household, to behave more appropriately. She then dressed Rias, although she was surprised that Issei, chosen by the Red Dragon Emperor, was considered unworthy. Rias and Graphia then left, leaving Issei confused about what had happened. The next morning at school, Issei finally understood the reason for everything. A magic circle appeared, followed by a blonde man named Riser Phoenix, a pure-blooded high-class demon and the third son of the Phoenix family. He was also Rias's fiancé. Issei was disgusted that such a man was engaged to Rias. Rias, of course, did not agree with the engagement and had planned the previous night to disrupt it by having Issei take her chastity. However, Riser, carrying the honor of the Phoenix family, could not afford to disgrace them. The situation between the two quickly escalated and was on the verge of losing control. At that moment, Graphia suggested that they settle the marriage issue with a rating game. If Rias could win the game, she would not have to marry. Upon hearing this, Riser immediately summoned his servants, all of whom were beautiful girls. This made Issei enviously burst into tears. However, thinking of Riser touching Rias, Issei quickly unleashed his dragon arm, ready to beat Riser, but was unexpectedly knocked out with a single blow by one of Riser's servants. The difference in strength was clear. After teaching Issei a lesson, Riser and his servants promptly returned to the demon world. The next time they would meet would be at the match. The man focused all his attention on his arm and instantly released a powerful energy beam strong enough to blow away a mountain peak. This not only made his opponent feel threatened, but also impressed everyone present. However, just a week ago, he was a loser who could be knocked down with one hit. To improve Issei's strength and to beat that jerk Riser, Rias organized a week-long intensive training for the whole team. Issei's first lesson was with Yuto, who trained his reaction skills through swordplay, teaching him to adapt spontaneously during combat. However, Issei was subdued in less than 2 rounds. The second lesson was with Akeno, who taught Issei and Asia how to use magical power by focusing their minds to sense the fluctuations of magic. Asia quickly learned how to use magic, showing a natural talent for it. In contrast, Issei was much weaker. The source of magic power is imagination. The key is to visualize what one is thinking about. However, Issei's thoughts were all about breasts. Then Kaneko took the third lesson, teaching Issei through sparring how to aim for the central parts of the body. In the evening during the fourth lesson, Issei and Asia practiced controlling magic to prepare dinner. Asia easily heated cold water with magic, while Issei, still fixated on breasts, ended up peeling the skin off an onion in the next second. Could this be the power of the Breast Dragon Emperor? While having dinner with everyone, Issei couldn't help but think about his poor training performance earlier that day. Determined to defeat Riser and rescue Rias, he decided to train even harder in the future, planning to add extra sessions in the evenings on top of his current routine. Long ago, demons, fallen angels, and angels waged 3 great wars against each other, ending without victory or defeat as all combatants perished. Although demons live eternally, they have a very low birth rate, leading to a crisis for their race. After the wars, most pure-blooded demon families, known as the 72 Pillars, died out, leaving only a few like the Gremory, Citri, and Phoenix families. Due to the scarcity of demons, they began turning humans into minions. This led to the creation of the raiding games, which use minions to gain battle experience and display the strength of their masters. Nowadays, the outcomes of these games significantly affect a demon's rank and influence. Rias is particularly worried about this battle because her opponent, Phoenix, is known as the Immortal Phoenix, a mythical beast. Despite being a demon, Riser Phoenix possesses the same immortal properties as his namesake, making him virtually invincible as he can heal instantly from any injury. Riser's record stands at 8 wins and 2 losses, with the losses being strategic to benefit his family. Since the inception of the raiding games, the Phoenix family has rapidly expanded its influence, much like Nouveau Riche, because an immortal phoenix is unbeatable. Issei, aware of how crucial this fight is for Rias's future, trains exceptionally hard. The results of his efforts are evident as he can now enhance his dragon arm 12 times, something he couldn't have handled before. This improvement is fully displayed when Yuto spars with him again, and Issei concentrates his power in his left hand, striking a distant mountain peak and shattering it, an attack on par with a high-class demon. Issei's role is pivotal in this duel. His enhanced attack power will significantly influence the outcome. As their intense training concludes, the story approaches its climax. He is a pure pervert who can cause girls' clothes to burst open just by lightly touching them. Using this despicable method, the protagonist not only earned the disdain of his opponents, but also made his teammates feel degraded. After a week of intensive training, the final battle between Issei and Phoenix began. With the appearance of a magic circle, the group was instantly transported to an alternate space, a replica of the real world, but reconstructed by demons using magical power. As soon as they arrived, the battle was on the verge of erupting. For Riser, the drama would not end until he had crushed Rias's pride. Rias ordered Yuto and Koneko to set traps around the area, while Akino was in charge of keeping watch. Rias had Issei and Asia stay close to her. Moreover, Rias rewarded Issei with the legendary lap pillow, which moved Issei to tears. However, Rias was actually trying to lift a curse she had previously placed on Issei. Rias had used 8 chess pieces to resurrect Issei, but his newly resurrected body could not yet handle the power. Therefore, Rias sealed his power in stages. This was also why she had Issei physically train during their camp. In the end, Rias sternly warned Issei not to go easy on anyone, insisting that he must not hold back even if the opponent is a girl. Afterward, Issei immediately teamed up with Koneko, and the pair soon encountered 4 enemies in the gymnasium, consisting of 3 soldiers and 1 rook. Koneko, also being a rook, took on the enemy rook, while Issei faced the remaining 3 soldiers. Although the enemy rook's attacks were fierce and sharp, Koneko managed to dodge them with her agile movements. After a series of kicks, Koneko seized an opportunity to punch the enemy in the face. At the same time, Issei was being chased by an enemy wielding a chainsaw. However, Issei was ready to showcase his newly perfected special move. He lightly marked the enemies. And in the next second, all the girls' clothes were stripped off. After subduing the 4 in the gymnasium, Issei and Koneko quickly fled the scene as Akino's lightning strike was imminent. The next second, Akeno blasted the entire gymnasium, eliminating the 4 enemies. Issei and Koneko then headed to assist Yuto in the distance. But unexpectedly, a bomb blast sent them flying. Koneko was regretfully knocked out of the competition by the blast. The attacker was the enemy's queen, Yubaluna. Seeing her teammate injured and out of the game, Akeno immediately arrived to take over the battlefield. Issei quickly met up with Yuto, and their next goal was to defeat the remaining chess pieces, excluding Riser. They first encountered an enemy knight. Yuto immediately engaged the knight. But his sword was no match for the enemy's flaming sword and was quickly broken. However, in the next second, Yuto created a second blade. It turns out Yuto's ability is to create magic swords. He can instantly create any type of magic sword. Meanwhile, Issei was surrounded by the remaining 5 enemies. Despite this, he did not lose his fighting spirit. Instead, his emotions surged. The Red Dragon Emperor responded to Issei's call, and his dragon arm transformed once again. The Red Dragon Emperor also bestowed upon Issei a new ability, Power Transfer. Issei immediately had Yuto cast his magic sword creation towards him. Then, Issei's dragon arm absorbed this power, and finally, it was enhanced and released through the hand of the Red Dragon Emperor. Instantly, a field of swords sprang from the ground, piercing all the enemies present. However, as Issei dealt with these 5 enemies, Akeno was also defeated by Yubaluna through a clever strategy. The man never imagined that despite risking his life to become stronger, he still couldn't protect the woman he loved. At a critical moment, everything fell apart. Watching Rias plead with a despicable man brought him only cold despair. The stronger the enemy, the stronger the Red Dragon Emperor's arm becomes. As time passed, its power continued to double. Issei's strong desire to win for Rias gained the recognition and response of Drake, the Red Dragon Emperor. The dragon arm evolved by transforming and enhancing the power of Yuto's magic swords, allowing Issei to defeat the rest of Riser's pieces. However, Akeno and Yuto were defeated one by Yubaluna. Although Akeno initially dominated her, Yubaluna used a cheat item, Phoenix's Tears, which heals any injury instantly. This treasure of the Phoenix family is allowed in the raiding games, leading to Akeno's defeat. Seeing her queen and knight defeated, Rias engaged Riser with Bishop Asia by her side. Despite repeatedly attacking Riser with magic, his Phoenix immortality allowed him to heal rapidly from any damage, leaving Rias exhausted. Asia continuously used a sacred artifact to restore Rias's energy. With the situation looking grim, Issei stormed the enemy's headquarters and was promoted to the rank of queen. Determined to secure a victory for Rias, Issei then climbed to the top of the building. Upon seeing Issei arrive, Riser showed no panic, confident the scales of victory were already tipped in his favor. Asia quickly tended to Issei's wounds, but the next second, Yubaluna's magic blasted towards Asia. Issei had to use his body to shield her. Though Asia wasn't injured, the shock caused her to faint. Issei, not savvy enough to see through tricks or understand being trapped, knew he could still fight for Rias. Issei continued to double his strength through the Red Dragon Emperor arm and charged at Riser. However, he hadn't run far before losing all his strength and falling from the roof. The physical strain from the Red Dragon Emperor arm was incomparable to other artifacts. It was a miracle he could still fight after so many power enhancements. With his magic depleted and hit directly by Yubaluna, Issei's body had surpassed its limits. Rias's magic was also running low, making the outcome clear. Yet the next second, Issei stood up again, like an indomitable phoenix, which infuriated Riser. Riser then unleashed a series of blows on Issei's face. A mere minion demon daring to challenge a pure-blooded high-class demon, Riser decided to burn Issei to ashes, to a point beyond healing. To save Issei, Rias had no choice but to submit to Riser and become his plaything. Helplessness and anger filled Issei's heart. The Red Dragon Emperor, observing Issei's efforts and anger, draws strength from the wielder's will. The artifact responded once again to Issei's call and reappeared in his mind, and Riser could never have anticipated the kind of monster he was about to face. This man never imagined that the crazed figure before him, clearly a demon, could wield a cross and even splash holy water. The appearance of the true dragon was sure to shake the entire demonic world. After being defeated by Riser, Issei had been unconscious for 2 days. Thinking of Rias crying, Issei's resolve only strengthened. He was determined to take Rias back from Riser. The Red Dragon Emperor, Dreg, responded to Issei, promising to grant him power whenever he needed it, though it would come at a cost and require a sacrifice. As Issei awoke from his coma, the maid Graphia came to his room and delivered the news that Rias was about to marry Riser. Issei wept bitterly, blaming his own weakness. Graphia saw the discontent in Issei's heart and found him interesting. In her many years, Graphia had seen countless demons, but it was the first time she saw one like Issei, who wore his heart on his face. The next second, Graphia handed Issei a magic circle that could teleport him directly to the wedding venue, a chance given by Rias's brother, the Demon Lord. Graphia then left, and immediately after, Issei summoned the Red Dragon Emperor, Dreg, to make a deal. Dreg had said he would grant Issei power proportional to the sacrifice made. However, this power could only be maintained for 10 seconds. Any longer, and Issei's body would not withstand it. The sacrifice Issei made was to offer one of his arms to the Red Dragon Emperor. Meanwhile, Riser was hosting an engagement party with Rias in the demonic world, attended by well-known figures among demons. However, unexpectedly, Issei burst into the party, causing a commotion. Seeing Issei's arrival, his companions quickly created an opportunity for him. At that moment, Rias's brother, Lord Surzex, the Demon King, also arrived at the scene. Surzex announced that this was the entertainment he had prepared, commenting that the rating game between Riser and his sister had been quite interesting. However, he found it unconvincing to have his inexperienced sister, who lacked even half the combat strength, as an opponent. Therefore, Surzex requested Riser, who possessed the power of the Phoenix, to fight again against Issei, who held the power of the dragon. He wanted to witness the battle between the Phoenix and the dragon firsthand. Issei understood that this was his last chance to reclaim Rias. Surzex also promised Issei that if he won this battle, he would grant him one wish. Issei's only wish was to have Rias return to him. The next second, Issei unleashed the dragon's power without reservation. His body was immediately enveloped by the forbidden dragon armor. From that moment, a 10-second countdown began, the duration of power Dreg had promised to Issei. His attributes skyrocketed, matching Riser in speed and strength. The two fiercely exchanged punches in the air. Despite the enhancement from the armor, Issei was not yet fully adapted to the power. They clashed again, and this time Issei was struck hard enough to spit blood. However, Riser was not faring much better, as Issei was holding a cross, which inflicted severe damage on him. Even the Phoenix could not withstand the holy power enhanced by the Red Dragon Emperor arm. Since Issei's left hand was offered to Dreg, it was unaffected by the cross. Even knowing his arm would not return, Issei had no regrets. He was about to deliver the final punch to Riser, but just then, the 10 seconds ended, and the armor disintegrated. Dreg admitted he was powerless to help further, as this was the limit with Issei's current base abilities. One more second, and Issei's body would have exploded. However, in that instant of deactivation, Dreg transferred the last bit of energy to the gem on the dragon hand, but this was only temporary. Seeing Issei lose his armor, Riser immediately resumed his arrogant demeanor. Unperturbed, Issei retaliated by dousing Riser's face with the enhanced holy water, causing him to crumble. Without a doubt, Issei won the duel. The Demon King honored his promise, returning Rias to Issei and personally summoning a bird to transport Issei and Rias back to the human world. In a girls' high school, there is a lecherous student named Issei. He was killed by a fallen angel due to his lecherous nature, but was transformed into a demon by Rias, whom he had summoned. He also became host to the power of the Red Dragon Emperor, gaining a bug skill that enhances his strength continuously. Issei meets fellow demon servants Akino, Koneko, Yuto, and Asia, who was also transformed into a demon after being killed by a fallen angel. After some time, Issei encounters his first major rival, Riser, who is not only Rias's fiancé, but also a high-ranking demon. In their first meeting, Riser beats Issei severely. However, being the protagonist of the anime, Issei trades his arm with the Red Dragon Emperor Drake for power, and defeats Riser at his engagement party, rescuing Rias. Following this, Rias grows more fond of Issei, giving him her first kiss and moving into his house. One morning, Issei's day starts with a sensual morning, but Asia interrupts by knocking on the door and then decides to join them by undressing. Unknowingly, Issei fulfills his dream of becoming a harem king, surrounded by beautiful girls. Since it's the annual big cleaning day at the old school building, the department's regular meeting cannot be held, so Rias decides to hold it at Issei's house. Due to Issei's closeness with club president Rias, rumors about him spread throughout the academy. Issei's arm occasionally pains him due to his sacrifice to the Red Dragon Emperor, and only Akino's magic can temporarily suppress it, although the treatment process is quite strange. After the treatment, Akino confessed her feelings to him. She was captivated by Issei's heroic actions during the wedding interruption. The meeting was held as scheduled at Issei's house in the afternoon. Issei's hospitable mother brought out his childhood photos, which instantly made Rias and Asia blush at his cute appearance. However, Yuto's expression changed as he looked through the photos. He spotted a holy sword in the background of a photo with Issei and a friend. Yuto asked Issei if he knew where the sword was, but Issei couldn't remember. Yuto seemed to become a different person. That night, Issei went out on a commission as usual. The client, a middle-aged man with blonde hair, did not make any outrageous demands. He simply wanted to pass the time drinking with Issei. Unbeknownst to Issei, this man was Azazel, the leader of the fallen angels. After completing the commission, Issei received a call from Rias. She instructed him to gather for a mission to subdue a lost demon. It turned out that a demon who had fled its master was causing trouble nearby. Rias quickly led the team to handle it. The fugitive demon seemed harmless, but was actually a spider demon that had lost its sanity. The spider demon immediately attacked Issei and two others. Yuto was distracted and nearly lost his life. Fortunately, Koneko managed to throw the demon away in time, and Akino followed up with a lightning strike to immobilize the spider demon. Finally, Rias killed it completely. After resolving the incident, Rias slapped Yuto because his distraction had almost put his comrades in grave danger. Facing Rias's questioning, Yuto appeared indifferent and simply said he was not feeling well before turning to leave. Issei, concerned about Yuto, approached him with care, but received only a cold response. Yuto lived solely for revenge against the Holy Sword. Issei learned about Yuto's past from Rias. The Holy Sword is the most feared weapon for demons, harming them on touch and destroying them if it cuts them. Despite its terrifying power, few can wield it. The church had initiated an artificial breeding program to create individuals who could wield the Holy Sword, known as the Holy Sword Project. Yuto was the sole survivor of this project. Understanding this, Issei realized why Yuto had reacted so strongly to the photo earlier that afternoon. Meanwhile, two church members arrived in town, one of whom, a blonde woman, pulled out the childhood photo of Issei and Yuto. In the rainy night, Yuto, who had left alone, remembered his painful past. He believed he did not deserve companions. Soon, he was attacked by the perverse exorcist Freed, who wielded the holy sword Excalibur. Already enemies, their encounter escalated quickly due to Yuto's foul mood, and they clashed fiercely. However, the holy sword's power overwhelmed Yuto, depriving him of his ability to fight. Freed received orders to retreat and vanished into the night, signaling the arrival of a new crisis. This man never expected that his sacred gear, the Red Dragon Emperor arm, would also have a passive skill, attracting the opposite sex. The power of the dragon poses a threat and charms those around. While many are hostile towards it, there are also many of the opposite sex attracted to this charm. Just this morning, the Red Dragon Emperor Drag warned Issei to be cautious as he sensed a very strong presence nearby, and the white could appear at any time. Issei did not know who this white Drag mentioned was. Drag explained that it was the White Dragon Emperor. The White Dragon Emperor and the Red Dragon Emperor are known as the two heavenly dragons and are eternal rivals. Both hosts of the heavenly dragons are destined to battle each other. Issei finds these matters uninteresting, as he is only focused on his goal of becoming a harem king. The Red Dragon Emperor encouraged Issei, suggesting he might indeed achieve this goal since the dragon's power naturally charms and attracts many women. This morning, two individuals dressed in white cloaks from the church arrived at the girls' high school, their purpose unknown. Issei noticed that Yuto was absent from school, likely due to issues related to the Holy Sword. Rias decided not to keep secrets any longer and told Issei everything about the Holy Sword project. The church had raised many children to wield the Holy Swords, of which there are 7. The original Holy Sword, Excalibur, broke in an ancient war. The church collected its fragments and used alchemy to forge 7 new Holy Swords. However, none in the Holy Sword project could wield them, leading to the project's failure. The planners eventually decided to eliminate all the subjects. By the time Rias found Yuto, he was barely alive but had made a fierce vow of revenge. Rias hoped Yuto, as a demon, would channel this intense resolve into something meaningful. This is why Yuto reacted so strongly to the photo of the Holy Sword. That evening, as Issei and Asia returned home, they felt a chilling presence, typical of church personnel. Issei worried about his mother's safety but discovered upon entering his home that it was his childhood friend Irina, who had joined the church, and her companion, a blue-haired woman named Zenobia. Clearly, Irina had found out about Issei's demon identity. Meanwhile, Rias was taken to a sauna room for a private conversation with the student council president, Sona. She informed Rias that church members had brought a holy sword to the school. Rias immediately thought of Issei's photo. Late at night, Issei went fishing with Azazel again. Azazel advised him not to look so gloomy, reminding him that he was a demon and that many things in the world operate naturally. Worrying about the future was pointless. The next afternoon, Irina and Zenobia came to Rias to issue a warning not to interfere with the church's actions. They explained that 3 holy swords had been taken by fallen angels, and their mission was to retrieve these swords. They also warned the demons to stay away from the holy swords. Rias expressed her complete disinterest in the holy swords. As they were leaving, Zenobia recognized Asia as a former saint and was shocked to see her as a demon now. Zenobia mocked Asia relentlessly and even threatened to send her to heaven. Hearing this, Issei became angry and challenged Zenobia. Yuto, witnessing this, also decided to stand up for Asia. Issei and Yuto immediately went outside to confront the arrogant duo. Irina, disregarding their past friendship, drew her holy sword and attacked Issei vigorously. Meanwhile, Issei was distracted, taking the opportunity to observe how Irina had grown up, particularly her chest. Irina criticized Issei for being pathetic, and then lightly slashed him, causing Issei to lose all his strength, demonstrating the power of the holy sword. Clearly, Irina won this encounter. On the other side, Yuto was not faring any better. Facing 2 of Yuto's magical swords, Zenobia easily destroyed them with a single strike. Yuto then gathered all his power to create a giant magical sword and struck with all his might, but Zenobia effortlessly countered it. Yuto's advantage lies in his variety of magical swords and speed. Swinging a giant sword not only lacked power but also hindered his pride in his speed. By now, Yuto's vision was clouded by his desire for revenge. This boy never expected that the seemingly noble and holy church would engage in such despicable acts behind the scenes. As a subject of the church's secret human experimentation project, he was to be completely eradicated by the church for not meeting their expectations. His companions paid with their lives to help Yuto escape. Filled with thoughts of revenge, Yuto was on his last breath when a red-haired witch appeared before him. From Zenobia, Rias learned that a fallen angel officer named Kokabiel had stolen the holy sword. Despite knowing the enemy was a formidable officer-level opponent, the church had sent only Zenobia and Irina, effectively treating them as expendable. Rather than let the holy sword fall into the hands of fallen angels, they were prepared to sacrifice themselves to destroy it. At night, Yuto decided to leave Rias because, ever since learning about the holy sword's existence, he only wanted to seek revenge and destroy all the holy swords. Issei, wanting to help Yuto, chose to assist him secretly, without Rias's knowledge, and enlisted Saji, a follower of the student council president Sona, as part of their force. They immediately started searching the streets for Zenobia and Irina. Unexpectedly, they found Zenobia and Irina reduced to begging on the street. Seeing this, Issei first invited them to have a meal. He then straightforwardly expressed his desire to help them destroy the holy sword, thereby aiding Yuto in his revenge. Given their common goal, this was a good proposal, especially since the two women alone were unlikely to complete such a mission on their own. In the evening, at Issei's invitation, Yuto joined the team as well. Now, with a common goal, the enemy of their enemy became their friend. Yuto didn't understand why Issei would do so much for him. Issei simply said it was because they were companions and needed to help each other. This reminded Yuto of the first time he met Rias, when he was subjected to endless experiments daily. He was deprived of his freedom and even his rights as a human. Despite this, everyone believed they were chosen by God, clinging to the hope of becoming special one day. However, no one was able to use the holy sword, and the experiments ended in failure. To cover up the project, the higher-ups chose to silence everyone involved. The children could only struggle painfully on the floor, coughing up blood. Yuto was the only one who escaped, but his life was also hanging by a thread, with pursuers close behind. At that moment, all Yuto could think of was revenge. The intense desire for revenge attracted the demon Rias. Yuto was grateful that Rias saved him at that time, but he escaped because of his companion's help. He vowed to channel their hatred into his magical sword and destroy the holy sword. This was the only way he could atone for escaping alone. After learning about Yuto's past, Issei and the others became even more determined to help him. For this reason, Issei skipped his evening commitment with Azazel. Azazel felt regretful, but the next moment, another mysterious man appeared before Azazel. This mysterious man would be Issei's nemesis in the future. 1,000 years ago, he survived the chaotic war among gods, fallen angels, and demons. Far from being frightened by the war's cruelty, it excited him and made his blood boil. Now he despises the peaceful era, and he is Kokabiel, an officer among the fallen angels. He has appeared in the mortal realm with one goal: to reignite the great war between gods, fallen angels, and demons, as only war can make him happy. To destroy the stolen holy sword, Issei and his group encountered the perverse exorcist, Freed again, who wielded one of the 7 holy swords. With hatred for the holy sword and disdain for Freed, Yuto immediately engaged him in battle. However, with the holy sword, Freed had the upper hand. Issei wanted to transfer the power of the Red Dragon Emperor to Yuto, which required first distracting Freed. Hearing this, Saji quickly summoned his sacred gear, Absorption Line, and effortlessly locked down Freed's left leg. The next second, Koneko threw Issei towards Yuto, and in mid-air, Issei transferred the dragon's power to Yuto. Empowered by the Red Dragon Emperor's strength, Yuto quickly overpowered Freed with his magic sword. Unexpectedly, an elderly voice emerged from the shadows. It was Valper, the mastermind behind the Holy Sword project, the man who had directly caused the death of Yuto's companions. At this moment, both Valper and Yuto's eyes were filled with hatred. Valper commanded Freed to channel his power into the holy sword to unleash its true potential. Suddenly, the tide of battle shifted, and Freed swung his sword at Yuto. Fortunately, Zenobia arrived just in time to block the strike for Yuto. Seeing the other 2 holy sword wielders also arrive at the scene, Valper and Freed chose to flee. Yuto and Zenobia quickly pursued them. At that moment, Sona and Rias arrived at the scene because Issei and others acted without permission. The 2 masters decided to punish their disobedient servants with 1,000 spankings. After the punishment, Issei and Rias returned home, where Asia was already waiting in a scanty apron. Seeing this, Rias also changed into a scanty apron. Meanwhile, Irina got separated from Zenobia while chasing Freed, who took the opportunity to attack the isolated Irina. Unable to withstand Fried's assault, Irina was knocked to the ground. The next afternoon, the group found Irina severely injured, but Yuto and Zenobia were nowhere to be seen. Before they could react, they discovered the exorcist, Fried, hiding in a nearby forest. Moreover, this time Fried's boss was also present, the 10-winged fallen angel officer, Kokabiel. Kokabiel admired Rias's red hair, remarking it was just as beautiful as Surzex's. He planned to center his chaos around the girls' high school in the city, forcing the Devil King Surzex to intervene, hoping it would spark a new war. Since the end of the Third War, Kokabiel had only felt boredom, while the leader of the fallen angels, Azazel, yearned for a peaceful life. Kokabiel believed that the fallen angels, gods, and demons were merely maintaining a delicate balance, so he decided to reignite the war. As Kokabiel's subordinate, Fried had acquired 2 holy swords stolen from the church. Indeed, like attracts like, and the perverse always attract the perverse. To protect the academy and the city, the student council was tasked with creating a barrier to prevent the upcoming battle from being noticed by the outside world. Meanwhile, Aquino independently requested assistance from Devil King Surzex. As everyone was preparing for battle, Kokabiel arrived at the girls' high school. His attack instantly destroyed the gymnasium, marking the first time Issei witnessed such a powerful assault, causing even his body to tremble. Dedrague warned Issei that Kokabiel was a man who had survived battles against devils and gods in the past, but assured him that he could still help Issei win this fight. During the battle, Kokabiel summoned a 3-headed dog from hell. Koneko was injured by the Hellhound, and Asia immediately came to heal her. Issei drew the Hellhound's attention, boosting the powers of Rias and Aquino. Issei himself became a target of the Hellhound, but was saved by Zenobia, who arrived just in time. Yuto also joined the fight, helping everyone to eliminate the Hellhound. Meanwhile, Valper fused 4 stolen holy swords. Within 20 minutes, the unleashed power from the holy swords could obliterate the city. The only way to prevent this tragedy was to defeat Kokabiel, but their powers were not on the same level. Thus, Yuto decided to destroy the holy swords alone, while Issei and others distracted Kokabiel. Kokabiel had anticipated this move and instructed Fried to use the newly fused holy sword to deal with Yuto. This sword, possessing the powers of the other 4 holy swords, was not something they could easily handle. Yuto felt powerless facing his nemesis Valper, who also taunted him about his inability. Valper had extracted divine elements from subjects of the Holy Sword Project to create sacred crystals, enabling him to create holy sword wielders for his own use. To Valper, Yuto and the other children were just experimental materials, disposable once used. Valper then threw the last sacred crystal to Yuto. Holding the crystal, Yuto was vividly reminded of his companions' tragic deaths. Valper had manipulated countless lives for his desires, and Yuto could not forgive this malicious individual. In the next moment, the souls within the sacred crystal were released in response to the vibrations of Yuto's heart. They appeared behind him. Yuto had always wondered if it was right that he alone survived. There were others with bigger dreams, others who wanted to live more than he did. Thus, he always felt guilty and could only continue by relying on the power of revenge. However, the next second, the images of his companions merged into Yuto's body. When the holder's thoughts and desires can alter the flow of the world, the sacred gear reaches the balance breaker state. Yuto heard his companions' voices. They did not want revenge for themselves, but now Yuto had to defeat the evil before him to prevent future victims. He transformed himself into a sword, cutting through all darkness. Yuto gained the ability of Blade Blacksmith and created the Sword of Betrayer. Zenobia also summoned the holy sword Durandal, a sword said to be unmatched by anyone and capable of cutting through anything it touches. As a perfect wielder of holy swords, Zenobia could barely manage it. Together, Yuto and Zenobia quickly broke Fried's fused holy sword. Valper, realizing something, was silenced the next second. The impatient Kokabiel prepared to end everything personally. This is the most absurd man I've ever seen. As the bearer of the Red Dragon Emperor, Issei awakened the ability to grow stronger by touching women's breasts. However, this time he faced a tough opponent, Kokabiel, a high-ranking fallen angel, and undoubtedly the strongest enemy Issei has ever encountered. Even with the enhanced properties of the Red Dragon Emperor arm, Issei and Rias were no match for Kokabiel. Yuto and Zenobia attacked the enemy together, hoping to buy time, but the gap in strength was evident. Yuto eventually attempted to ambush Kokabiel with his demon sword, but he couldn't even pierce his wings. Kokabiel easily caught Yuto's full-force strike with his fingers. Nevertheless, Yuto did not give up. During the battle, Kokabiel inadvertently revealed that in the last three-way war, all four great devils and gods had died. Heaven was now solely supported by Archangel Michael. He resented that Cerzex had prevented further wars. With the peacemakers gone, special beings like the Sword of Betrayer emerged. The group was shocked to hear this news. As they felt powerless to retaliate, Issei found renewed strength. Rias promised Issei that if he could defeat Kokabiel, she would let him touch her breasts as much as he wanted. The power of the sacred gear depends on the will of its host. Motivated, Issei evolved the Red Dragon Emperor arm and landed several punches on Kokabiel's face. Although Kokabiel was shocked by the power, it was clearly not enough to defeat a high-ranking officer like himself. Kokabiel was about to unleash his full power when suddenly a white figure appeared above the battlefield. It was clearly the White Dragon Emperor who had been entrusted by the leader of the fallen angels to end the war. The White Dragon Emperor instantly stripped Kokabiel of his wings. Kokabiel prepared to unleash his full power to kill the White Dragon Emperor, but he was unaware of the White Dragon Emperor's bug-like ability. While the Red Dragon Emperor can double its bearer's power or transfer it to others, the White Dragon Emperor halves an opponent's power and converts it into the bearer's strength. With ease, the White Dragon Emperor landed a punch that swiftly ended Kokabiel. Seeing the appearance of the White Dragon Albion, the Red Dragon Didraig immediately called out to him. They had not expected to meet again in such a manner. The White Dragon Emperor hinted that Issei needed to grow stronger to truly be his rival, then transformed into a beam of light and left the scene. With the departure of the White Dragon Emperor, the Midnight Chaos also came to an end. After this event, Zenobia decided to join the Devils and became a follower of Rias. Subsequently, Azazel, who had always asked Issei to accompany him fishing, revealed his true identity as the leader of the fallen angels. He had infiltrated the city in advance, sensing Kokabiel's malicious intentions. Azazel was also highly interested in Issei's Red Dragon Emperor arm. Direct action by Azazel would have caused many complications, so he had asked the White Dragon Emperor to intervene and end the fight. Azazel reminded Issei that with his current strength, even doubling his power would not be enough to defeat Kokabiel. Due to the incident with Kokabiel, a summit meeting between the fallen angels, devils, and angels was soon to be held. The next afternoon, Devil King Cerzex, Rias's brother, arrived in the human world. Before the summit meeting, Cerzex decided to handle some private matters, namely visiting Issei's parents, as he already considered Issei his future brother-in-law. So, Cerzex visited Issei's home in the evening to greet them. Despite being a Devil King, Cerzex was not at all arrogant, but was incredibly approachable. That evening he sent Rias and Asia away and stayed alone with Issei. Issei felt quite embarrassed, having the Devil King sleep on a futon in his home, but Cerzex didn't mind at all. He thanked Issei for making his sister Rias so happy. Knowing Issei's unmatched obsession with breasts, Cerzex decided to offer him some advice. This immediately set off Issei's imagination. He had never thought about such things before, and was extremely excited. So much so that he hardly slept that night, his mind filled with thoughts on the matter. However, his excitement faded as school approached, replaced by a sense of crisis. The next moment, he saw a stranger standing at the school gate, who was clearly Issei's arch-enemy, the White Dragon Emperor. As is well known, the Red Dragon Emperor doubles the bearer's power or transfers it to others, while the White Dragon Emperor halves an opponent's power and converts it to the bearer's own. These two dragons are inherently complementary and opposing, and the humans who host these sacred gears are destined to become arch-enemies. Currently, Vali, the host of the White Dragon Emperor, has sought out Issei to simply get to know him. When Issei's companions arrived, Vali showed no interest in fighting Issei. Known as the two heavenly dragons, those involved with the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor in the past have often met grim fates. Honestly, Vali was curious to see what end Rias would meet. He stated he was just there to say hello, boasted about his strength, and then turned to leave. At that moment, Rias's palms were already sweating with nervousness. as their current strength was no match for Vali. Drag told Issei that Vali was a complete form and also shared with Issei the history of their past. During the past wars among gods, fallen angels, and demons, each faction received support from their respective races. However, the dragons were an exception, mostly being indifferent to the war. At the climax of the conflict, there were two foolish dragons that started fighting each other. These two dragons ignored the world-dominating war and caused chaos on the battlefield. The reason for their fight? Dragon Albion had long forgotten it. Because the disruption by the dragons was so significant, the three major powers had to temporarily cease their war to deal with them. However, when their fight was interrupted, the two dragons became furious and devoured the leaders of the gods, fallen angels, and demons. The audacity of gods and devils to interfere in a dragon's battle enraged them. As a result, the physical bodies of the two dragons were sliced into countless pieces, and their souls were sealed within human bodies as sacred gears. Since then, the two dragons have encountered and battled multiple times using human hosts. This time, the ultimate battle has fallen to Issei and Vali, signifying that their fight is inevitable. Because the school was preparing for a parent-teacher conference, both Issei's parents and Rias's father came to the event. Unexpectedly, the parents hit it off right away and decided to go out for drinks, acknowledging the relationship between Issei and Rias. In this congenial atmosphere, Rias kissed Issei. At this time, Circex approached Rias with the intention of having her release another bishop, who had been sealed away in the old school building due to his overwhelming power that could not be controlled. Circex believed that Rias now had the capability to manage him effectively. The next afternoon, a group went to the old schoolhouse to lift the seal. To their surprise, they found a cute vampire who, despite his sweet appearance, was actually a boy dressed in women's clothing due to his fondness for cross-dressing. His name was Gasper, and he possessed a sacred gear called Forbidden Baylor View, which could stop time for anything he saw when he got excited. As a half-human, half-vampire, Gasper had been shunned by his own kind from a young age, making him extremely timid and unable to control his power. Following Cirzex's orders, Gasper had been sealed in this location. His abilities seemed to unintentionally improve, suggesting the potential to reach balance breaker status. Due to his shy nature and difficulty in communicating, Issei and others made great efforts to help him change. When Saji found out that this adorable girl was actually a boy, he began to question his life. At the same time, Azazel, the leader of the fallen angels, came here, claiming he was just out for a walk because he was out of money and hoping to find someone generous enough to offer a meal. Coincidentally, he ran into Issei and his group. Azazel informed them that the Forbidden Baylor View sacred gear could become incredibly dangerous if the holder's capacity was not sufficient. The quickest solution would be to drink the blood of the Red Dragon Emperor to control the power. Grateful for Azazel's advice, Issei immediately decided to save money to buy a gift for Azazel. Despite this suggestion, Gasper was very resistant to drinking blood. Eventually, it took Issei's persuasive talking to lower Gasper's guard. Issei, of course, had his own ulterior motives. At this time, everyone concerned about Gasper's situation came together, and thankfully, with Issei's guidance, Gasper finally let down his guard. After this, Akino invited Issei to a shrine in the mountains because someone wanted to meet him. Issei was surprised to find that this person was none other than the Archangel Michael. The man never expected that Archangel Michael, a legendary figure, would seek him out and even gift him the legendary weapon, the dragon-slaying sword, Ascalon. Michael planned to give the Ascalon to Issei, intending for it to merge with the Red Dragon Emperor arm. For Issei, historically the weakest host of the Red Dragon Emperor, this was a significant boost in power. Since the Great War had ended, although large-scale battles ceased, minor conflicts among the three powers persisted. Michael believed that if these skirmishes continued, they would eventually lead to everyone's destruction. He wished for the three major forces to unite and eliminate unnecessary conflicts. The only time such unity occurred was when the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor disrupted the battlefield with their antics. Hoping to inspire a similar alliance, Michael placed his bets on Issei. Issei then synchronized the Red Dragon Emperor arm with Ascalon, and with a brilliant flash of golden light, the two truly merged into one. After this, Michael immediately turned and left. At this moment, Akino chose to reveal her origins to Issei. Akeno was the child of the fallen angel leader Kokabiel and a human woman from a shrine. Her mother had saved an injured Kokabiel, leading to a romantic involvement and eventually Akeno's birth. Because she carried half of the fallen angel's lineage, Akeno had only one fallen angel wing, which she despised as dirty. That's why she met Rias and sought to reincarnate as a demon, but ended up as a creature with both demon and fallen angel wings. Fallen angels had tormented Issei and Asia, breaking their spirits and even taking lives, so Issei harbored a strong dislike for fallen angels. However, this did not mean he disliked Akeno. He encouraged Akeno to accept herself, which deeply moved her. Akeno, feeling stirred, decided to reward Issei. At night, Issei continued to help Gasper with his magic control training. Under Issei's guidance, Gasper made significant progress, bringing Issei closer to his own dream. Asia showed great interest in this, but when Gasper tried to explain, Issei quickly covered his mouth. Meanwhile, Azazel and Vali were atop a building in the city, watching the night unfold. Vali expressed regret about living in a peaceful era without wars, as he yearned only to battle against the strong and found this peaceful time dull. As the tripartite summit was about to begin, Vali encountered a girl named Ophis, and it seemed they recognized each other. On the other side, Kaneko and Gasper stayed behind at the old schoolhouse while the others attended the meeting. The summit of the three major powers proceeded as planned, with all sides hoping to sign a peace treaty and expecting both the white and red dragons to adopt a peaceful stance. Michael also addressed the issue of Asia and Zenovia's exile. However, during the meeting, a mysterious force secretly invaded, led by the infinite dragon, Ophis, and her army of disaster. They first targeted Gasper, intending to provoke him and cause his sacred gear to go berserk, which resulted in the entire school campus falling into a state of time suspension. The next second, the leaders at the summit noticed the anomaly. Azazel immediately guessed that Gasper's powers had gone out of control. The strongest individuals were not affected by this power, while Issei and the others countered the time freeze using the power of the dragons and the holy sword. Just then, countless magicians suddenly descended from the sky. If they didn't quickly find a way to retrieve Gasper, everyone would be in danger. Rias and Issei immediately decided to rescue Gasper, while Vali went to distract the enemies. In an instant, Vali activated his balance breaker state. With just a casual strike, he wiped out a large group of enemies, but their numbers kept coming. Seeing this, Issei also prepared to move. Before acting, Azazel gave Issei 2 bracelets. Azazel explained that one bracelet could help Issei reach the balance breaker state as a last resort, because Issei was still not able to manage his stamina well. The other bracelet was for Gasper, as it had the effect of suppressing his berserk state. Although Issei had been fortunate in his battle so far, he was still just a slightly stronger demon than a human. If he couldn't control his power, he would eventually die, since Issei himself was a weak point of the Red Dragon Emperor arm. Issei and Rias quickly arrived at Gasper's location, where Gasper was being forced to use his powers. Gasper begged Rias to kill him to end the ordeal, but Rias would not do that. Since Gasper became her servant, Rias had promised to find a way for him to live satisfactorily. At that moment, Issei encouraged Gasper, telling him that they would not abandon him. Then, Issei cut open his own palm with Ascalon and offered his blood to Gasper. Seeing this, Gasper hesitated no more. He was determined to show his courage. As he licked the blood, Gasper immediately unleashed his suppressed powers, transforming into countless bats and hiding in the darkness. In an instant, he stopped time for all the enemies present. After dealing with the enemies, Issei quickly put the bracelet on Gasper to prevent any further power outbursts. He is the leader of the fallen angels, but he has no interest in world domination. He is particularly fascinated with collecting sacred gears, and for this reason, he developed his own artificial sacred gear, the Downfall Dragon Spear. While Issei and Rias were rescuing Gasper, the 3 leaders at the conference were also attacked by enemies. They quickly erected barriers for defense, only to find that the attackers were remnants of the old Devil Kings, led by Kateria, a descendant of Leviathan. Kateria argued that in the absence of gods and Devil Kings, the world should be transformed. Azazel decided to face her, eager to test his newly developed toy. As Gasper controlled his power surge, the tide of the battlefield began to turn. and Azazel decided to end the drama. He pulled out the artificial sacred gear, Downfall Dragon Spear, which immediately resonated with the Red Dragon Emperor. The appearance of this armor astonished everyone present. With just one strike, Azazel defeated the enemy. However, Kateria attempted to blow herself up along with Azazel. A deadly poison entered Azazel's body through his arm, prompting him to swiftly cut off his own arm to stop the poison and then obliterate the enemy with a single shot. Meanwhile, Issei and the others eliminated all the invading magicians. But as soon as the battle ended, Azazel was suddenly attacked, and the assailant was Vali. Vali expressed that siding with the army of disaster seemed more interesting, so he decided to join the opposing side. Vali, along with the infinite dragon Alphys, had little interest in world domination. They were simply interested in challenging the strong. Vali, fully named Vali Lucifer, is a half-blood of a former devil king and a human mother, a true devilkin with half-human blood, and also the host of the White Dragon Emperor. Azazel jokingly remarked that Vali's existence was quite monstrous. Without doubt, Vali is the strongest White Dragon Emperor to date. Vali mockingly asked Issei if he thought fate was cruel. Not only did Vali inherit the power of a devil king, but he also acquired the power of a dragon, making him the strongest being. In contrast, Issei was merely a human, an exceedingly ordinary lecherous student before becoming a demon. In other words, Issei had nothing but the Red Dragon Emperor arm. His life was too mundane. So mundane that Vali couldn't help but laugh. Although their sacred gears were rivals, the gap between them was as vast as that between heaven and earth. Vali immediately declared his intention to kill Issei's parents, to drive Issei into a rage and turn him into an avenger. Issei, driven by anger, instantly entered the balance breaker state. The sacred gear would transform strong convictions into a source of power. Clearly, his pure fury was now directed at Vali. Without wasting words, Issei immediately attacked Vali with Ascalon. The White Dragon Emperor was well aware of the power of the Dragon Slayer. Even a single hit could be devastating. The two clashed in the air. Cerzex grabbed Rias, stopping her from advancing, as just approaching the intense aura of their battle could incinerate a normal person. In several exchanges, Vali felt that Issei was too weak, so weak that he couldn't even touch a single hair on him. He easily knocked Issei to the ground with a kick and stripped him of all his power. At that moment, Issei noticed that Vali's wings were radiating energy. It turned out that Vali had absorbed too much power, and the excess energy was spilling out of his wings, allowing him to maintain flight indefinitely. The next second, Vali immediately targeted Issei's companions. Seeing this, Issei had no choice but to use his body to shield his friends from the attack. Issei quickly amplified the power of Ascalon and then punched, shattering Vali's armor. He continued to transfer power to Vali, intending to overload the White Dragon Emperor's wings beyond their limit, which would cause the sacred gear to collapse. The next moment, Issei delivered another powerful punch that sent Vali reeling back. However, Vali remained calm and quickly summoned his armor again, determined to fight until his opponent could no longer battle. This was the nature of the conflict between the Red Dragon Emperor and the White Dragon Emperor. However, at that moment, Issei's body could no longer sustain the effort. The Red Dragon Emperor urged Issei to flee, warning that if he overexerted himself, he would surely die. But Issei could not abandon his companions. Just then, Issei remembered that the sacred gear could evolve in response to strong beliefs. With this in mind, he picked up the fragments of the White Dragon Emperor's sacred gear that he had just scattered and fused them into his right hand. He intended to transplant Vali's power into his own sacred gear. The White Dragon Emperor found this amusing, as the powers of the two dragons were antagonistic, and merging them was essentially suicidal. However, to his surprise, Issei actually managed to accomplish the fusion. Seeing this, Vali became even more interested in Issei and decided to use his full power. Vali's behavior made everyone present feel it was abnormal. To this, Azazel commented, "How could housing a dragon inside one's body be normal? Now, let's see just how abnormal the other dragon can be." He then explained Vali's skill to Issei, which halves the size of everything within its range, including reducing Rias's bust by half. Vali never imagined that just because of a woman's bust, he nearly got beaten by Issei to a point where he could hardly take care of himself. Vali believed that Issei had the power to force him into using his Juggernaut Drive form. The next second, he was ready to transform into Juggernaut Drive. But just then, the battle was disrupted by a man, Biku, a descendant of Sun Wukong, and Vali left with him. At that moment, Issei exhausted all his strength. The peace agreement was successfully signed. Azazel became the advisor of the Occult Research Club, guiding the proper growth of their sacred gears. At the request of the Devil King, everyone moved into Issei's house.